So like all they can see is me. Oh, but now they can see you. And you have the purple. Yep. Can you see, Bubba, can you see that it shows that it's live streaming too? You can see that from your spot. Ooh. Oh, welcome. We are live. Welcome to the Solidarity House morning show. Happy Monday. Please like, share, subscribe. We should be on multiple places this morning, which is super exciting. It's super exciting. And there's my son-child. And Chiquita, Estrellita, is right next to me, and she might make an appearance too. I can feel it. We'll see. But anyway, happy Monday. You want to say hi too? Say happy Monday. Solidarity House Morning Show. And today is the takeover. So it's Everett and myself. Oh, Everett, also let's change our names. If you remember how to change your names, let's do it where we put our pronouns on there, right? Because we're trying to normalize that. So I'm going to rename myself and I'm going to say Veronica, she, they. And you can do your pronouns. I just forgot. And then just do your first name and then your pronouns, because if you do pronouns in first and last name, you never actually get to see the pronouns because all you see is the first and last name. So when we talk about normalizing stuff, this is one of the things. And if we talk about unschooling or real life skills, renaming yourself in a Zoom call is a real life skill, right? Okay. Oh, and that's Emmy. So Emmy's calling. Okay, so happy Monday. Thank you guys for joining us. Like, share, subscribe, patreon.com/Solidarity House to support. We really appreciate it. This is a special week. It's our, it's the Gratitude to Colonizer Day, otherwise known as Thanksgiving or Turkey Day or whatever you want to say. That's this Thursday. And this Monday, as we told you last week, we're going to talk about food, talk about meal plan, talk about what we're eating. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as well as Everett's heart. And so, Everett, I'm really, really happy to have you on the show. Welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I am doing good. I have been doing some homeschooling and I haven't really been super busy, but I've been good. Yeah, I've just been chilling and I'm happy to be on the show.
Did you say you're happy to be on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, and Antifa, could you do me a favor? I don't know if you can change your name. I just realized. Hold on just 1 second. We are trying to normalize. I just changed mine. To include my pronouns. And so it might be they, them, but anyway, so we are just doing check-ins before we get into Monday meal plan, talking about the Thanksgiving Turkey Gratitude to Colonizer Day, as well as our retreat weekend, as well as catching up about anything else that we want to talk about with food or meal plans or anything like that. Everett, I sent you a private message. I just want to make sure that you saw it. Does that make sense? Just check your messages, just because I sent you a private message. Welcome, Antifa. I appreciate you joining us. So I don't know if Everett has been on the show with Antifa, and I don't know if he even knows what Antifa is, but so we may have to get Everett, we may have to go back and do the Antifa education or make you watch that episode later. But Antifa, you know what Antifa is. Okay, never mind. You already know. Okay, so Antifa, welcome. Happy Monday. How are you today? Anything else on your heart? Where are you calling from?
I'm waiting for my secret contractors to come build my secret bunker, where we will hide out at the end of it all. Still waiting for my George Soros money to come through. That's difficult to get here. I don't know where that is. I'll have to call him and ask him where my dough is. Oh, other than that, I'm pretty good. I haven't had to punch any fascists recently, mostly because I avoid them. So yeah, that's me.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Happy Monday. Yeah, so I'll just say for my check-in, doing pretty well, all things considered, and things could be worse. I don't know. I won't do my personal check-in like I did it. I won't relieve myself all over the entire public audience like I relieved myself all over my comrades yesterday for our personal group meeting check-in. Or maybe I will. I don't know. You never know. Anyway, I'll just say I just want to give gratitude for my comrades and my people for always meeting me where I'm at and accepting me and giving me space and grace. And I am grateful for like-minded souls in the universe. And it's Monday again. So like we live to fight another day. It's like, here we go. Yeah. And so thinking about also like the holiday season and that being, I brought up on the show before, been thinking about like Thanksgiving and that actual day and what we do, or like how we meet people where they're at, people who may not be able to commune with their loved ones like they normally would, and they may be stuck at home. And so how do we minister to people all over? Anyway, so those are the things on my mind. So I would say overall, I can't complain. Things could be a lot worse, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. So let's get to it. Monday meal plan, food, retreat, like whatever we want to talk about, right? So I appreciate having Antifa, and Everett, both on the show, especially with the food show, especially with the Monday meal plan. So I just want to make sure that you guys both know, everybody knows this is an opportunity to not only talk about what we're making, but like what makes a good fill in the blank. So I know you guys all have opinions. I have opinions too. And we can talk about best practices and the idea of like what we're looking forward to, and yeah, go from there. So I'm going to actually ask Antifa to lead things off. And I want to talk about gravy first, because gravy is something that you're going to be in charge of. And so I have personal feelings about it. My perspective, but I'm so curious and so looking forward to trying your gravy. And can you tell us what's your take on gravy? What makes your gravy special, or what do you dare share with the audience? It might be privileged information, so I don't want to make you give up secrets, but yeah, what would you like to share?
You know, the thing with gravy is you got to do it right, or the entire meal sucks, because you've just put this on top of your meal. Especially at Thanksgiving, you put it on your turkey, you put it on your stuffing, you put it on your mashed potatoes, you may put some on your green bean casserole. So you're totally screwed if you don't pull it off. You're going to make everything taste like crap. It's not hard. It takes 15 minutes and a little patience. That's all it takes. You can't just throw flour in water and call it gravy. Okay, you have to make a roux, and you have to just a nice silky roux as you're adding in a tablespoon of whatever stock or turkey juice drippings you're using. And you just got to take it in time until you get a nice silky thick roux, and then you can add slightly more liquid at a time. And it just takes, that's all it takes. It's like a couple of tablespoons of flour, whatever stock you're using, the turkey drippings. I recommend that you take some of the grease from the turkey drippings and use that to make your roux first, the oil. So there's more flavor, and then you mix the flour in that oil until it browns to the color that you want. And then you start adding your liquid a tablespoon at a time, continuously stirring over medium heat. It's just not hard. It's not hard. And yet I've seen so many dinners just go straight to the crapper because they made bad gravy. Either they put all the flour in there at once and didn't mix it right, or it's lumpy because you don't take the time, or the consistency isn't there because you didn't cook it long enough or you didn't use enough flour. I mean, it's an eyeballing situation. It's just that it's not that hard, and people screw it up all the time, and it ruins the meal. So I have taken it upon myself to guarantee that the gravy will not be shitty. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it was going to be. I'm not going to say that people who are incompetent. I'm saying I know what I'm doing, and I'm not letting this get screwed up because I cannot tolerate crappy gravy.
Okay, so I have follow-up questions. My first follow-up question is actually a pop quiz question to see if Everett can help us answer it. Everett, when he said the word roux, were you confused, or did you know what that word meant? And if you did know what the word meant, could you help us define that? Because I think some people might have gotten lost as soon as the word roux was uttered. Everett?
Well, a roux is usually like something that you make before you. It's usually has has flour and water or something,
Close.
and you have to make it before you do like the other stuff, and then you put it in. So you have to let it and like marinate or something. I'm not
close. So roux, Antifa, would you like to help explain then? How would you define a roux? We had one part correct. Flour is absolutely correct, and it could be flour or a type of flour, I always say, right? Like if you wanted to, I've messed around with adding some extra stuff in, but a flour-ish substance. And instead of water though, fat. Right? Is that how you would, Antifa, would you describe it any other way? Flour-ish and fat?
And fat of some sort. It just
And
means
fat?
you are actually cooking the flour in this oil, and it's either for two purposes. If you just roux can serve two purposes, three actually. One is a thickening agent, two, it can change the color of your liquid, and three, it also can affect the flavor, depending on how dark you go with your roux and what you use. You can use regular wheat flour, but you can also use some of the alternative flours for the gluten-free folks. Rice flour, potato flour, chickpea flour. I don't know how well they'll necessarily pull through. Chickpea flour is pretty sturdy, so is potato flour. And so they should hold up pretty well. But yeah, that's what the roux does. It's flour and fat, and you're cooking the flour in the fat before you start adding your liquid.
Mm-hmm.
A tablespoon at a time, continuously stirring. And then once it gets the big silky pile of flour and liquid and fat, that's when you start adding about half a cup at a time, and you continuously stir during this process over medium heat. Get it up high enough so that it's boiling, but then you got to get it right back down to that medium so that it doesn't scorch anymore or burn.
And I think the other thing is, and this is what roux goes, lots of these sauces go into the same thing. I also think about risotto. It requires constant attention and constant movement in order to be correct, in order to come out the correct way. And so that's the big downfall that I see people it seems like it's something like maybe you could leave for an instant, but in order to do it correctly, it really does require that constant attention. For that short period of time, right? It doesn't take that long, but it does take all of that. It's not a multitasking situation.
Right. You have to pay attention to what you're doing with those two things. For instance, that's just a 20-minute thing that you need to take the time to do it and do it right. And once you have the gravy made, you just got to stick it in a container, and you can reheat it. It may gluten itself together, but you can reheat it and it'll go back to a liquid just fine. I would encourage people not to be afraid of making a roux because they don't know what it's supposed to do. And if you know those three things that I told you that it's supposed to do, thickening, color, and flavor changes, and cook it how long you want it. And just the key here is just don't dump in all the liquid at the same time. That really is the biggest thing. It's a half a cup at a time, or a tablespoon at a time at the very beginning, and then a half a cup at a time as you get towards the middle and end of it. And then you can just, once it all is a nice smooth puddle, then you can put the rest of your juices in or whatever. But the key is just not to dump all the liquid in there at the same time. And that's usually the most frustrating thing I experience when it comes to gravy.
I really appreciate that. Everett, do you have anything else that you want to ask or anything else with the gravy? I know, or roux, right? The idea of like how to make a roux. It's also roux is also what starts your sauce for your really good mac and cheese too, right? That's what what else we use a roux for, or like a queso, like lots of sauces that you start with a roux.
Almost every decent sauce with its salt is a roux, has a roux in it. Otherwise, you're just gonna go with jus, which is just the juice, which you can do, but it ain't gravy.
And so I wanted to, that was one of the things, Everett, if that makes sense. And I think so I have vegan friends, and this idea of like, it doesn't have to be the turkey drippings. It could be, there are definitely like vegetarian, vegan alternatives. Like the idea of a roux is it's fat and flour, right? It's fat and a flour and something like that. And that's where you go. And so, thank you for helping us break that down and take something that seems very complicated and that also is like sort of easy to mess up, the way that we get sort of in our heads about it, and breaking it down so everybody can see it's accessible, right? It's accessible and doable. Anything else on the gravy before I segue into mac and cheese on the roux? Roux is going to be my segue.
No.
Great. So Everett has thoughts about the mac and cheese, and Everett has feelings about mac and cheese. And I'll say I like all kinds of mac and cheese. I'm not like a purist in like one mac and cheese, but I definitely like a baked mac and cheese, soul food, like how our Mima made it. Mima makes mac and cheese, however, like our family, the recipe we've used, and that definitely starts with a roux. And then roux into, I think it'd actually be roux into bechamel is basically what the word is, right? But like roux plus milk, right? You start with that milk, adding those liquids and adding that milk. Everett, I just want to ask you from your perspective, what makes a great mac and cheese? What is your favorite mac and cheese? What are your tips or your thoughts about mac and cheese? Because I know you have lots of feelings about it.
Well, I do love mac and cheese. It is usually really good. I usually like it baked and stuff. Sometimes the corners are the best part, or it's really good. I like it a lot.
Corners. Can we talk about the corners? Why are the corners? What is it about the corners? Because this is.
Well, the corners are like more crunchy. Sometimes if you're making mac and cheese casserole or if you're baking it. And I actually like the corners for a lot of things.
That's true. You do. You are a corners person for sure. You like the crunchy on like anything that a corner is magnificent. That's what you want. Yep, for sure. Any special ingredients, any hints that you have, or anything that you know that you want to share? Favorite cheeses in it? Does it matter to you? You go for any kind of mac and cheese?
Well, yeah, I really like mac and cheese. It's
like sometimes you get very specific about what kind of cheeses you want, right? Like what are your top 2 favorite cheeses that need to be included in a mac and cheese?
Well, sharp cheddar and.
Is it sharp cheddar or extra sharp cheddar? Because sometimes you get on me about the extra sharp.
Sharp.
Sharp is fine.
And sometimes, I think I had one with pepper jack once, and it was good.
You know, Sarah said that she asked me about including pepper jack and we were talking about all the kinds of cheeses, and pepper jack might be making an appearance, I actually believe. So I'm glad to hear.
But
like
another thing that I have to talk about is the sweet potato casserole.
Okay, I'll make sure that we get back. I'll make sure that we come to sweet potato casserole, and maybe we can talk about casseroles in general and the different kinds of casserole. Auntie Fa, any tips, anything you want to share about mac and cheese? I've got a couple of things too, but I'm interested if you have any requests or stay away froms or anything.
I think the first mistake that people make when they're trying to do homemade mac and cheese is they think they can just jump cheese and butter on top of the noodles, and you cannot do that. It will be gross, and it's a no-no, not unless you're using Velveeta, and then it takes a while to melt. And if you're eating Velveeta, you're not eating real cheese. Sorry. It may have been cow adjacent at some point in time, but I really don't consider it to be cheese. And so that's the biggest mistake people make that have never really made it before, is they just try to dump cheese on top of macaroni instead of making it into a sauce that goes over it. And it's just a cheese sauce. The same principles apply. You make your roux, and then you're adding your milk, and then you add the cheese, slowly stirring it together over time until it becomes this wonderful, delicious sauce that you then toss your macaroni in. But it takes 15 minutes of time, and you have to pay attention.
And extra cheese on top. And I want to say this about what you said about the gravy and this idea of like roux, how you just explained making mac and cheese. And I want to talk about my Mima again, our Mima, Everett's Mima, who is one of the Black grandmothers that I had the privilege of growing up with, and one of Everett's grandmothers, right, in his life. And what I think is like aggravating for people is when you say things like, oh, gravy, it's so easy. It's just a little bit of flour and a little bit of butter, and you just stir it. You just add this, right? And so, and I can hear Mima talking, right? And the same thing of like getting a recipe out of her is very difficult, because it's by feel, it's by look. And I was going to say, maybe we talk about what sort of, instead of saying like what a recipe is, the idea of like, what sort of consistency do you look for in a roux before you move on to the next step? Because those are almost the kind of things, other than saying like this much flour to this much fat, and like, there can be a range, there can be some experimentation, but also people feeling like confident in the kitchen. I think that that's something that like, it's hard for people, right? If we don't have experience in the kitchen, to feel comfortable in the kitchen. And you say it like it's easy. And I know when you've lived it, and like my Mima, like it's a pinch of this and this. And it's like, how did you just do that? Right? Like how, and so I think, I don't know if that comes just like with time. I think, experience, feeling, I'm just trying to think about this. It's a very interesting thing. Making this relatable, making it accessible for people, right? Like what do you have to say to that? What are your feelings on that, of like your experience?
Well, I thought hopefully I made it clear when you're making a general gravy. I mean, it all relies on those three factors. How thick do you want your sauce or soup? Mm-hmm. Do you want it to be a different color, on the range of white to brown that you'll get with your flour? Where do you want that? What color of gravy do you want? And then secondly, are you looking for a thicker flavor that's coming from the roux, or is it just playing a background note to thicken things? And so you have to answer those three questions. But as a general rule, no matter what the color is, that you can get to that color you want, it needs to be silky in appearance. Okay, it needs to be somewhat, not like dough, but not runny, and it needs to be silky in appearance. Okay. And then that's when you start adding larger quantities of fluid. Okay, because you don't need to cook the flour in your oil for very long for it to A, change color, and B, start to clump together. So it doesn't take very long. And so once you've answered your question, essentially, of how dark do I want my gravy and how thick do I want it to be, then you go ahead and make your adjustments accordingly.
And I think
I can't give you a recipe for gravy. If I had to, okay, fine.
But like, no, we're not going to. We're gonna anti recipe. So we're gonna say, and this is what I appreciate. What you're saying is like kind of what you look for. And again, making this accessible for people and having people also be able to feel confident and like there is no right answer. Like figure out what sounds good to you, what feels right. I was thinking the thing about the consistency, right? Or like what you look for. Those are the things of what your gauges are. And again, having it be up to the person. Same thing with your cheese sauce for your mac and cheese. It's not going to be wrong. It's going to taste delicious. You're going to stir it and give it attention and give it love. And it's, some salt and pepper, ground mustard in your for your mac and cheese, right? Ground mustard adds an extra a little bit. That was from my mima, but like, besides that, what kind of gravy do you want? How thick do you want it to be? What color are you looking for? What flavor profile, right? All of those things. And different people want different things. And so I appreciate, again, I think those are much more helpful. I was thinking of consistency. And so when you say silky smooth and like, not like a dough, I almost think of, this is going to sound gross, but almost like a toothpaste, like something coming out of a tube like that, just like silky smooth, but thick. Right? Where you're still moving it, but it's thick. And then you start little liquid. So if it's gravy, it's your broth or whatever that is, right? If it's your milk for you're going to make your mac and cheese, right? Then you're adding little bit by little bit, or like a cheese, because that's basically just getting you ready for cheese sauce. I really appreciate those. That's exactly what I was looking for, Auntie Fa, are those tips of like what you look for, what you feel, that feel of what, that there isn't necessarily a recipe. Like we can tell you, but you should also take a look for yourselves and feel, add some butter and some flour and stir it around and you can see what happens. And there are lots of recipes that are already out there, right? And so a lot of times I say, like, if you don't feel comfortable, you can, like my trick is go look at the first 5 or 6 recipes or 10 recipes or whatever you want to find. And then look at the differences, look at the ingredients that you have that you want to use and get a feel for it. Pay attention to how it feels and what that taste is. It's going to be very, very helpful for the gravy, for the mac and cheese, right? To what works and what those signs are of what something should look like or feel like before you move on.
Yeah, I would also like to add that provided you haven't oversopped your liquid in before it's ready, gravy will be very forgiving. It will continue to thicken. As long as you cook it, it will continue to thicken. So if you've made your roux okay, clumps, but it's a little bit, cook a little more on slow and low heat. Longer. Okay, you froze there for a second.
Thank you.
I said it's forgiving.
I appreciate that. Okay. So, anything else about mac and cheese before we move on to the next thing? I've got a couple more things that I know that are specific, and sweet potato casserole is one of them. Are we ready for sweet potato casserole?
Oh God, this is another disaster waiting to happen, isn't it? Does it involve marshmallows and maple syrup? Because if it does, I'm leaving now.
So this is what I want to say. Number one, there's lots of different sorts of sweet potatoes, right? There are lots of different options for what people are used to. And I personally, again, I like sweet potatoes all of the ways. I'm curious, what do you like or what do you not like? Auntie Fa, start with you. What is annoying? You don't like the normal regular sweet potato casserole at all? No marshmallows? You're anti-marshmallow?
I'm anti-marshmallow on a sweet potato casserole. Yeah.
Just like
and it loses, you lose the natural sweetness of the sweet potato. Slow cooked is one of the sweetest things you're going to get in nature. Okay. And when you throw honey or maple syrup and especially a marshmallow on there, you've voided all of that natural flavor because it's so sweet. It doesn't need that. And now it's just like, oh, gee, this tastes, well, like sweet, not a sweet potato casserole. It just tastes sweet. And I object to flavors that are just sweet or just salt. When people use salt as a seasoning beyond, what is barely required for, but to make up for their lack of other flavor, you've done the wrong thing. And so yeah, I have very strong feelings. Sweet potato casserole.
Okay. So I hope I'm not frozen. Can you guys see me okay? Hear me okay?
Yeah, I can see you fine.
Great. So I appreciate what you're saying, number one, because I've changed my feelings about so sweet potato casserole is dessert. It's dessert. Like it's not, it just, if you're going to make sweet potato casserole with marshmallows and everything else on top, it absolutely is a dessert. And it's probably sweeter and has more sugar and more stuff than even like sweet potato pie. Well, realistically, which is fine. So, but it's not, but I know what you're saying, right? Because as far as like sweet potatoes, it's not sweet potatoes. So it's something different. It is sweet potato casserole as a separate entity. And I don't care, mini marshmallows on top, the crumble pecan brown sugar crumble. Like I'm like, I do agree in that I think that there are sweet potato casseroles that are way too sweet for me personally, right? Way too sweet for me personally, before the even pecan brown sugar or marshmallow, right? And the idea of, I think what you're saying too, that I really want to speak to is like anything that is just one tone and is just like sweet, extra sweet to be sweet and not highlighting the flavor, not adding to the flavor of what it is, but like making it grosser. You know what I mean? Like muddying it down. I appreciate what you're saying on that. And so I think like, I would probably, if on my sweet potato casserole spectrum, if we said, and I'm Everett, I don't want to speak for you. I want to hear what you have to say. But this idea of like, I would probably want something with less topping, less sweetening, more nuanced flavor, some extra like nutmeg and cinnamon, some flavoring in the actual casserole besides just like extra super duper sweet, where Everett might be looking for just straight up dessert. Like I want dessert on sweet, brown sugar in it, brown sugar on top of it, all of that. And I guess my other thing is, as long as we don't view it as a vegetable, but we view it as a dessert that is made with some vegetables, then I guess you can have your mini marshmallow, covered thing. But it's not the same thing. Does that make sense? I don't know. Hopefully you heard that.
You know, anything I do the, if it's got a marshmallow on it, for instance, I won't eat it. If it's the crumbled pecan, brown sugar, if you put a little bit of nutmeg in there, then you're getting it closer to a dish as opposed to just a dessert, because those flavors work well with a lot of other things that are on a Thanksgiving plate, and so they can be part of your main or served as a dessert. I just don't like sweet for sweet's sake, and I do not like. Try something, folks. Try this. Get yourself a nice orange yam, sweet potato. It's a yam, whatever, and poke it several times with a fork on one side, and then put that poked side down, and then put a piece of aluminum foil underneath on the rack below that, sweet potato, and bake it for an hour. And see what comes down and drips down onto that piece of aluminum foil. And let it cool down a bit and taste it. And you're going to wonder, why am I wasting my time adding anything else to make this sweeter? It is literally a form of natural candy when you let it cook down like that. Those syrups just drip down there. They get a little charred. And then, you're not going to get a whole bunch. But I'm just telling you, if you don't know what you're dealing with when it comes to a sweet potato, that's a really good way. And that'll teach you why you don't need marshmallows.
You're so right. And my mouth is salivating because I have had, and there are different, and I also want to say this, it's not a sweet potato, yam, whatever. There are lots of different kinds of sweet potatoes, and yams being like a specific, I think yams are actually their own thing. I'm gonna have to check my sources on that. But red garnets are a specific, if you can, a red garnet roasted like that, my mouth is literally watering thinking about it. And Everett knows this is true because we've had it, but look at his face. He's like, I know, because it doesn't even need butter. It doesn't need honey. It doesn't need anything. It's like literally motherfucking candy. To that point, Everett, and I'll have to find the video or the photo. There's this place in Denver, a grocery store, an Asian grocery store called H Mart. And sometimes at the front, they have, you can buy there's little shops, like a boba shop, and you can get some Korean pastries. They have a sweet potato roaster where you can buy whole roasted sweet potatoes that have been roasted over these coals. And it's like a delicacy, but that's it. They're just fucking sweet potatoes roasted that are they have a whole thing there because they are literally, they need nothing. They need nothing. It is heaven on earth, God's gift to it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Have you ever gotten them?
Huh?
Have you ever gotten them?
No. We didn't get them at the store. I didn't pay $5 for a roasted sweet potato, but I'm saying we've roasted sweet potatoes, so I know what that is. You're so cute. Everett, do you have anything else? What do you want to say about sweet potato casserole? You like sweet potatoes all the way too, all the different ways as well. So what do you have to say about, is sweet potato casserole just a dessert for you? Is that just a special Thanksgiving dessert or
Well, no, when I'm trying to have a sweet potato as a dessert, I would usually slice one in circles, kind of like this, and
rounds.
And I would drop a bit of honey on them,
mm-hmm.
and then I would eat it.
Well, we've also, and Auntie Fa, maybe we do, I just thought about this. So Everett and I have made basically, so we make a cream cheese, kind of like the cream cheese breakfast dip, cream cheese, Greek yogurt, some honey or maple syrup, just a touch, cinnamon, nutmeg, pumpkin pie spice, whatever, right? Those sort of sauji. All those sort of, whatever flavor profile you want of that, with cream cheese and Greek yogurt. And it's that breakfast sort of dip, but just that on a little bit of sweet potato, like a sweet potato slice. We would just eat that as it basically feels like a sweet potato pie cheesecake flavor profile. Does that make sense? Anyway, I don't know if that sounds good at all, but we could always try that too. Just thinking. Okay. Anything else on sweet potatoes? Sweet potato casserole, whole roasted sweet potatoes. I love all the sweet potatoes, all the ways. So everyone wanted to make sure you're making, then you're doing your sweet potato casserole of what you want as your option then. Is that correct, sir? See? Okay. Those were the things that really mattered. Well, I guess they're not that other foods don't matter. I know we've got Yana doing the turkey. I'm doing stuffing. Oh, Antifa, I did want to ask you, do you have any feelings, requests about stuffing? Because that's one thing that we haven't discussed. Because I'm planning on doing the stuffing. That was one thing I was going to do. One of the things I'm doing. Do you have any requests or any feelings about stuffing?
Giblets are disgusting. They're gross. If you put giblets in my stuffing, I will be sadly disappointed. 2, stuffing is the other thing next to gravy that people either get okay or just epically fuck up and ruin a Thanksgiving dinner. Nothing will ruin a Thanksgiving dinner faster than crappy stuffing. I'm telling you right now. 3, if you can't pull it off, just get a box of stovetop because it will save your freaking life in the end of the day. Okay? If you, unless you know what you're doing, just buy the stovetop and give in. Because everybody can eat that. You will not have destroyed Thanksgiving dinner by providing something that's just, and so, and I mean, literally, people have broken up, stopped being boyfriend and girlfriend when they went home to meet the family, and the stuffing was like garbage, and so be very cautious about using fruit in your stuffing. I'm not saying you can't, but like I've sometimes had raisins in it, but it's like, when you put a whole can of raisins in there, you're trying to bring a different flavor element. I get that, some savory with some sweet, but yeah, generally, I wouldn't put a lot of fruit. I would avoid fruits. And you cannot get the stuffing hot enough inside the bird on its own. Physics will not allow that to happen. So if you want to cook it inside the bird to absorb some of those juices and that flavor, which is fine, but when the bird is done, you remove the stuffing, you put it in a pan, and then you put it back in the oven for about 15, 20 minutes so that it'll get up to 165 degrees internal temperature. Yeah, I have a lot to say about stuffing.
Wow. If I haven't told you this yet today, I love you. And I'm really, really grateful for your presence in my life. And I forget that you're also my has worked in restaurants friend. So the serve safe, the HACCP, like the internal temperatures, the time and temperature control, I really appreciate you bringing that up because I forget about that. And that's so important. And so one of the things that I just, like people need to be very careful with food safety and time and temperature controls and how long we're leaving stuff like out forever and ever versus like not having things even cooked like up to the temperature. I was thinking about like turkeys and like how we handle things in the kitchen. And so, yeah, it's a real thing. People can really get sick, like people can actually get sick. And so thank you for bringing that up. Number one, I've never put fruit, maybe craisins, maybe one time, but not that it doesn't let me usually put, he's not really into that stuff. So I appreciate that. So no fruit. I generally, and I don't know, maybe I have cooked it inside of the turkey, but I'm generally stuffing separate from turkey. I'm like a pan of stuffing and like maybe multiple pans because like I really fucking love stuffing. And so, and then I don't have to worry because I know too much about food safety. Like the turkey and all of the, let me just make it sure that it tastes great without needing to be cooked inside of a turkey. That's my thing. Also, again, I appreciate the fact that we never have talked about this, but like the words you took out of my mouth. The stuffing box mix. Like, so, and this is my mom. My mom is an amazing fucking cook and has made several versions of stuffing from scratch, and so like my Mima, oh my God, my Mima, her stuffing is cornbread stuffing, and her stuffing is like the thick, but it's supposed to be like that, right? And like you could damn near like slice it. Like I love that kind of stuffing, cornbread stuffing like that. But generally, like what my mom has made, or what I would like, I usually make is more like just like a pan of stuffing. And you can use bread, right? You can use all sorts of random breads. And so that's always my first thing, is just like random breads, random things that you can use, or like make your own cornbread, or if you have your own cornbread. But realistically, the bag mix is like not a bad way to go. And a lot of times completely worth like, this is one of those things, the 80-20 rule, right? Where like I really, really give a shit 80% of the time about the foods that I'm taking in, or like what that actually is. And then 20% of the time, like, let it go. And so I think the idea of like, oh, you can do a whole bunch of work to make everything from scratch all the time, but bagged stuffing mix is one of the cheats that I just absolutely simply fucking adore. And I just want to allow people that space, right? I really appreciate you bringing that up of like, you don't have, it's okay, guys. It's okay. Just like, get it. It's fine. My hint though, I wanted to say for that personally, and so I don't do fruit, but I love a shit ton of vegetables, a shit ton. So lots of onions, celery, maybe even a little bit of carrot. I've done a little bit of like red pepper. And if that's like done in the pre-cook, right? With some sauteed with some fat and some salt, or fatty salt or salty fat or whatever, right? And then like having that as part of it. For me personally, that's my favorite part about the stuffing, are all of like those flavors and the bread, whatever, but like all the veggies, right? And if I add more veggies, then I also stretch it, number one, also make it more nutritious, number two, so I can eat more of it. That's usually why I was like, let me make a lot of this and put lots of stuff in it so I can enjoy it over and over. And so, yeah, that's kind of my thing about the stuffing. Anything else, Antifa? Chiquito? Abrecito? Stuffing?
No, I really like stuffing.
I know you do.
Everybody. That's the problem.
I like it a lot with gravy. It really adds a lot of flavor.
I was going to say, also brings up why the gravy is so important. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Say it again.
Pour some gravy on some stuffing and I'll eat that. It's so good. It's just inexplicably.
Inexplicably? Is that the word you're using?
Yeah.
Hey, vocab. It's okay.
I bit my tongue. And I think we should just give a note of advice to those folks who are, trying to figure out what that flavor is that makes it unique. It's sage. Okay, don't go crazy with it though, because you can give too much sage to the party and it. But that's that Thanksgiving spice or herb that makes it that. It's sage. So if you're, just be aware of that, and know that you have that in your most likely in your dried herbs, if you've got one of those Walmart racks of herbs or whatever, and that's what that flavoring is. And it's in the stuffing. You put a little bit on your turkey, and that's what gets you there. And it comes in all different varieties. But just so you know, that's the flavor. It's sage.
Again, the synchronicity. I was like, we need to remember that we let people know that that's the flavor that they're looking for, right? That's the Thanksgiving. That's as soon as you've tasted, smell it, like that's what you're looking for. So thank you, Antifa, coming through. Antifa, can you talk to us about roasted Brussels sprouts really quickly, or any tips or tricks or things to avoid or things to make sure you do? I love roasted Brussels sprouts. We we love all the roasted vegetables. So, but roasted Brussels sprouts are on our menu because we fucking love them. So, yeah.
You gotta make sure you prep them properly. You can't just throw them in the oven. You just gotta cut the base off and then remove a couple of the leaves, essentially, because it's a sprouted plant that, would at some point grow into something else. We interrupt its growth to get the Brussels sprout. And so it's got leaves on it like a cabbage. And so you need to chop off the bottom stem part that was attached to the stem, because that's going to be woody, and then remove the couple of leaves. Now, do not throw those leaves or those stems away. Make sure you save those for your vegetable stock, because they'll bring a nice flavor to the party later on when you make vegetable stock or beef stock or chicken stock or whatever. And then olive oil and salt and pepper. Toss them in olive oil, salt and pepper, and then stick them in the oven for 350 for, by smell, half an hour. When they're fork tender. I hesitate to give you a time because it really does matter what elevation you're cooking at, because the water boils at different temperatures or whatever. But and once they're once they're done, this key. Put them underneath the broiler for 5 minutes and toss it. That way they get a nice crisp on them. The flavor you're going for with Brussels sprouts is bitter. That's how they should be. It's people like, nobody likes, but well, then you don't drink coffee, or there's all kinds of things that bitter makes better, and that's what Brussels sprouts are. When you roast them, you make them a little less bitter, and you get that crispiness on them, and it's just something about that particular flavor of bitter that is very appeasing, very appealing. And I haven't met anybody who doesn't like roasted Brussels sprouts.
I also thought about this earlier, and this idea of like when we were talking about not having things just be sweet or just be salty, or that we've talked about this, people think, oh, I just add more salt and that's going to make it taste better. The answer is no. However, there are lots of things that only need a little bit of salt and pepper to taste amazing, right? And so roasted vegetables, that's like, you don't need a whole bunch. You can just make it work. And lots of vegetables, right? Where a little bit of salt brings out that fat, and that salt brings out that natural flavor. And thank you for reminding us about the broiler at the end, because that's why I was like, you want that crispy. And if that's not what you're into, like, cool, then don't do it, right? And the idea of the temperature, if you wanted a little bit more, I like a higher temperature for burnt on the bottom, and then I stir them around and want them like more burnt. I like that a lot personally, but somebody may not like that. And so again, I'm sure there's lots of recipes that you can find with lots of different time and temperature combinations. And so again, just kind of like experimenting or thinking about, what do you prefer? What would you like more of? And that broiler at the end is definitely going to give you more of that burnt, like, it's just, oh God, it's so good. Now my mouth is watering all over again. Everett, do you have anything to add? I know you're like, Everett is a roasted vegetables fanatic. So, all of the roasted vegetables. Anything you want to add to this, Bubba?
Yeah.
Brussels sprouts specifically, or roasted vegetables in general?
Well, not necessarily roasted vegetables, but bitterness was talked about. And I feel like sometimes when you add a bit of bitterness, it really brings out, it makes some of the ingredients or the flavors less overpowering and makes it all more equaled out, so it tastes. So it's not super duper salty or super duper sour or super duper spicy. And it sometimes like levels the flavors in a dish. So yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate you taking it back to the bitter, because I want to say one more thing, and this is just the health coach in me, that when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I should have probably said this as like my perspective or what I bring to the table. So when we talk about home cooking versus like restaurant cooking, or like what people are used to in like when we say like a normal standard American sad diet, or like what those flavor profiles, right? And Antifa was talking about this, of this bitterness, and like people may feel turned out so good. And if you cook it you can cook it different ways that can bring different parts of that out to make it more palatable or more accessible. Bitterness is one of the pieces, also like that sour, right? That in most diets, it's not highlighted. It hasn't been. The salty and the sweet are definitely things that are mainstays in processed food, in the way that like we generally eat. And the bitter, the sour, those aren't generally highlighted, and our body needs them, right? Fermented foods, those things, the bitter foods, our body needs them. And the more, I always say, like, the more that you eat them, the more that you get used to them, the more that you crave them, right? Roasted Brussels sprouts, I don't remember being a thing, or like on menus, or like something that people talked about eating when I was growing up. And now roasted Brussels sprouts are like a thing, like these. And so I'm glad, right? This is a good thing. And it just highlights sort of like us needing all those flavors for our bodies, of what our bodies need to go to survive and thrive. Thank you for bringing that up, Everett. Okay. Anything else that we didn't talk about with the meal that you wanted to talk about? Any other? I'm sorry.
I just want to say real quick,
Please.
on the turkey front, because people are going to make them, can't skip them. If you're a novice, do yourself a favor. Get a medium-sized turkey. Make sure you've thawed it out in your fridge, like put it in your refrigerator today, so that it is thawed by Thursday. Okay. So just don't screw that up. Buy a meat thermometer. If you haven't got one, it's like $7 or $8. Buy one. You're going to use it again, even if it's only once a year. Okay. And here's the trick, folks. Slather the turkey in either olive oil or melted butter, salt and pepper it, toss in a couple of crushed cloves of garlic, and put it in one of those roasting bags and stick it in the roasting pan and let it cook according to how many ever pounds it is. It's like 15 minutes a pound, I think. Something like that. That's the equation. You just go to butterball.com. They've got the equation for how long. But for the novice cook, just get the roasting bag. Don't try to do grandma's recipe on your own. You're going to be very frustrated. You're going to have either a dry or an overly rubbery bird. But the roasting bags really do make a difference. They give you that beautiful brown coloration skin. It's just make it easier on yourself. And, nobody's going to complain if it's a nice brown roasted turkey that's fully cooked and you've got your stovetop stuffing. That's just fine. And your green giant green bean casserole. It's okay. It tastes good.
I really appreciate that with the roasting bag too. I was also going to ask, do you ever do, and I think that that's a great thing because it also keeps it like moist, or like the roaster, it helps it cook, but like also keeps that in there. Do you ever do, because Everett is like a big fan of skin, like the crispy skin. Do you ever broil the skin or do anything else? And I think adding the butter, right, or the fat to help that. But do you ever do the broiler at the end, or do you have any?
Well, actually, one of the best things that I like to do is to take some of the fat that's from the drippings and put it into a pan and let it cook out all the water that's in there. And then you just fry the skins. And it's actually, I first learned about it by watching a Jewish cooking show, because apparently doing that with chickens is a traditional, when they make the homemade matzo ball soup, chicken soup and all that, then they would take the skin flap around the end. That's all that big, it's got a lot of fat in it, and then just fry it up. And then it's a wonderful treat. So yes, I highly recommend that. And people are like, oh my God, that's so much fat. You don't eat this every day. It's Thanksgiving, for crap's sake. Be happy, have some fat, whatever. You're not going to die. It's not like you're eating it all the time. Enjoy it. It's one day a year. I mean, really.
Well, and I'm like a really big fat proponent personally. And so I say eat all the fat all the time, every day, and enjoy it. But that's another day. That's another story. So, but I'll just say for sure this day, for sure, I'll like, yeah, and appreciate it. And I think that that's a great point too. So again, like my sort of perspective, the idea of like eating with energy, please don't feel like, yeah, and eat it, but make sure that you're enjoying it and you're appreciating it and you're taking in the love of the people who made it, right? And I think that's one of the things with like home cooked foods, again, of the vitamin L, the love that's made when somebody puts that energy and that effort and that thought and that time and all of those things into it. Please don't feel guilty. Please enjoy it. Please really, really, really enjoy it. And eat the fucking fat, right? Like for sure. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Anything else, Antifa, about Thanksgiving? Everett, do you have anything else about the Gratitude to Colonizer food Monday meal plan? Anything else about that business?
Did we talk about green bean casserole already?
The fact that I loathe green bean casserole almost as much as I loathe sweet potato casserole. I mean, yeah, we can talk about that.
How do you feel about corn casserole? Corn casserole is also on the list.
Corn casserole is actually decent.
You're okay with corn casserole?
Yes.
What about cranberry sauce?
It's a must-have. A must-have.
I mean,
Even if it's just the stuff out of the can, it's like a palate cleanser when you're eating all of those heavily fatted foods and everything.
I don't love it. I mean, it's not bad. It's just
you don't have
cranberry sauce.
Okay, I'm not a big fan of parsley either, but it's a great aperitif to cleanse your palate while you're eating a meal. You know, that's what I like, cranberry sauce.
It's just never really been my favorite thing on Thanksgiving. Like, I've eaten it on Thanksgiving, every Thanksgiving. Right. I've eaten it, but like, it isn't one of my must-haves. Well, in Thanksgiving generally, you should make it, but I've never just really been that huge of a fan. I've still eaten it though. I've liked it, but it's not my favorite thing.
Well, and like same thing, we didn't even talk about mashed potatoes. This is like, it's a whole thing.
Potatoes either.
I know.
Sum it up, all you need is potatoes, mash it up, add some salt, pepper, whatever, gravy. It's really good. It's really good. I mean, it's potatoes, so it's great. It's great. No, it's really good on Thanksgiving. It's just.
I've got my own take on mashed potatoes. I love mashed potatoes. Nobody's gonna make you eat cranberry sauce, Everett. Don't worry.
I'll eat it. No, I like to eat it, but it's not my favorite thing.
Right. Well, you know, yeah, I totally get that. Oh, there is just two final things. Don't try to deep fat fry a frozen turkey. Please don't do that. Look online for stupid people who did that and learn why you don't do that. And the whole idea, unless you are really good at it and you've got somebody to help you, this whole cooking the turkey breast side down and then flipping it over for the last 30 minutes. Yeah, really? You're going to wrangle a 20-pound hot bird with your hands to try to flip it back over? So, yeah, don't just realize what you're setting yourself up for in the end there. You're going to have to manhandle 20 pounds of super hot meat if you're going to try and cook it breast down and then turn it over at the end to brown on top. So
why
I would just advise against that and just use the roasting bag.
Why does that exist? Why has that entered anybody's mind?
Because it is the reason why you do it that way. I think this is really pre-roasting bag is because then all the juices would run into the breast while it was cooking and accumulate in the breast meat. And then you flip it back over to give it brown skin. And you can do it with like chickens as well. Much easier to do with a chicken, okay? You can flip a chicken, no problem. And it does help make the breast meat more savory and juicy. But I defy you to flip a 20-pound bird single-handed. That's steamy, just burning hot. So yeah, don't do it. Get a roasting bag. And that's all I gotta say. I gotta go oversee contractors on my private bunker, so I gotta check out.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, we could go on for hours. I really appreciate you guys joining us for the Monday menu meal plan. Tomorrow we are going to be discussing tips for how to talk to people who you may not see eye to eye with, or may say something that you need to address, or like what those sort of strategies are, and getting into some of those. And that'll be tomorrow. So thank you for joining us on the Solidarity House morning show, second week, and we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys.
Don't forget that if you like us, go to patreon.com/Solidarity House.
Thank you.
Give us money.
Thank you. Solidarity House, sorry, patreon.com/Solidarity House. Like, share, subscribe, all of the things. Thank you very much for that, Antifa. I appreciate that. I am still getting used to the commercials.